大家在备考 PTE 口语的时候有没有这样一个误区呢？认为我们的语速越快，流利度就会越高。那事实真的是这样的吗？昨天呢，我做了一个模考测试，我用非常慢的语速去做了一套模考题，最后我拿到了78分的流利度，76分的口语总分。那大家看到这样一个成绩单之后，还会像之前那样认为我们的语速是决定流利度的关键吗？是不是实际上并不是这样的？而且大家可以看一下，我只做口语部分，我最后 reading 拿到的分数是34分。大家要知道这一套题我用正常的语速，在发音、流利度、口语3项满分的情况下，我的 reading 的分数也是34分。所以说我以一个特别慢，但是呢非常连贯的速度去作答，我的阅读而给阅读的共分还是达到了一个接近满分的成绩。所以说大家在备考的时候，如果说你刚开始一味的去追求语速的快，忽略了你单词和单词间的连贯度、发音的清晰度或者是发音的饱满程度，那么最后你拿到的流利度分数也绝对不高，而且还会因为你过快的语速导致的蹦单词，或者说不连贯，或者说声音上的清晰度不够，那么还会导致你的发音或者是你的内容分下降。所以呢，大家千万不要认为我们的口语就是语速快，流利度就高。另外呢，对于一些刚接触 PTE 的同学，他会觉得刚开始的时候我要兼顾的东西会比较多，然后呢，觉得老师那么快的一个语速，自己根本没有办法达到。那其实这样的同学呢，也不需要过度的焦虑，因为其实在老师带你学的过程中呢，给你指出来了一些问题，你只需要一点一点的去改就可以了。比如说你的连贯度不够，那么我就需要特别的去注意一下意群的划分，然后训练一下自己词和词之间的连贯度，用上一个单词尾音去连下一个单词的第一个音节，这样两个词这样去连，或者说去模仿去跟读，让自己每一遍的训练呢，你要知道你自己在训练什么。再比如说声音上有问题的同学呢，那我就拿半个小时1个小时，我专门来做压音的训练，或者说声音控制方面的训练，对吧？你只有这样针对自己的问题一点一点的去练习，那么你练多了，熟练度上去了，自然而然你的语速就快了，而且这个时候呢是非常自然连贯的快速，而不是高速懂单词。
接下来我们一起来看看 Sophia 老师的慢速模考测试。
I'm here now and I'm ready to start learning. I'm here now and I'm ready to start learning. The main difference on this occasion was that the colonists were not just fighting against a king who was determined to use his own prerogative. They were also fighting against a parliament which believed that it and it alone should raise taxes and control revenues, rights which had been won in the previous century. A scientist's evidence is thought to be reliable because it will have been tested and verified at every stage. This is not, of course, infallible, as scientists are subject to human error as much as the rest of us. The most obvious change is that 46% of the college's undergraduates are now women. When I went there, it was only the third year that women had been admitted, and about 70% of students were male. As we progress into the 21st century, communications are becoming faster and faster. Think of the millions of different media images you are bombarded with every day. It's as important now to be able to read and make sense of those images as it has been to be able to read ordinary text. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War Britain, a banana was a height of luxury. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural, and political rather than purely economic. And one of the main drivers, in addition to the global marketplace, is the communications revolution.
An understanding of mathematics is vital for most science subjects.
Understanding mathematics is vital for most science subjects.
If we work on this together, we'll get through it quickly.
If we work on this together, we will get through it quickly.
The new law professor used to work for the World Bank.
The new law professor used to work for the World Bank.
Many environment experts are very concerned about the future of our planet.
Many environmental experts are very concerned about the future of our planet.
The graph shows the percentage of people who smoke according to gender.
The graph shows the percentage of people who smoke according to the gender.
The meeting is always on the third Wednesday of the month.
The meeting is always on the third Wednesday of the month.
We can go anywhere, do anything, achieve any height.
We can go anywhere, do anything, achieve any height.
Construction of the Empire State Building in New York was completed in 1931.
Construction of the Empire State Building in New York was completed in 1931.
People under 70 have a higher quality of life than those over 70.
People under 70 have a higher quality of life than those over 70.
The area of Canada is more than 3.8 million square miles.
The area of Canada is more than 3.8 million square miles. This graph gives information about road traffic in Great Britain in billion vehicle kilometers, including all motor vehicles, cars and taxis, from 1952 to 2005. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 2005, which is 500. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in 1952, which is about 50. According to the graph, different years have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue the same trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph gives information about Economic and Social Research Council and Figure 1 UK unemployment rate from 1971 to 2006 in percentage. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 1955, which is about 12. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in 1971, which is about 4. According to the graph, different years have different figures. In conclusion, this picture is very interesting. This graph gives information about sales by quarter from quarter 1 to quarter 4 in value dollar in year 2004, including products, product Z, product Y, and product X. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 12,000, which is in quarter 1. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in $0, which is in quarter 2. According to the graph, different products have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue the same trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph gives information about life expectancy at birth in Australia, including males and females, in different years from 1995 to 2005. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 2005, which is about 80. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in 1995, which is about 75. According to the graph, different years have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue the same trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph gives information about adult literacy by region and literacy rates by sex from 2000 to 2004 in percent, including world, sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America and Caribbean, Asia and Arab states, in male and female. The source is from UNESCO Institute for Statistics, which can be accessed online. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in Latin America, which is 91. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in Arab states, which is about 55. In conclusion, this graph is very interesting. This graph gives information about economic and council. This graph gives information about economic conditions, the Philippines from 2000 to 2004, including consumer price index and GDP. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 2004, which is about 140. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in 2000, which is about 100. According to the graph, different years have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue the same trend, it will be hard to predict in the future.
Take the coffee industry. The figures are roughly these. The coffee market in the world is worth about 60 billion. The growers get about 5.5 billion. 10 years ago, the market was about 30 billion, and the growers got a third of that. What has happened? What has happened is that well-meaning people, Americans, Germans, Europeans, decided that they would help Vietnam. And so they created a coffee industry there, which is now the second biggest producer in the world. This has had serious effects on other countries like Colombia that depend on coffee exports.
This lecture is talking about coffee industry. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned the value is about 6 billion and the growth is about 5.5 billion. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned 10 years ago it was 30 billion. According to the lecture, the speaker mentions what happened. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned American, Germany, European, and they decided to help Vietnam. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned they created a coffee industry there. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned Colombia depends on coffee export. In conclusion, this lecture is very interesting.
You can see that the two charts each give quite a different picture of the performance of boys and girls in the two key subjects of maths and English. It shows that in English, girls consistently outperform boys over a period of 6 years, achieving scores about 10% above their male peers. There is quite a different picture when we look at the maths results, with no real difference between genders in the results. What is the explanation for these key differences? To answer this question, researchers look at biological and cognitive factors and a range of social factors. The interaction between these different components in early childhood development are seen as maintained and reinforced in the school context, and this leads to distinct gender patterns of behaviour in skills with direct consequences for school performance and achievement. The argument uses this evidence to show that biological factors, such as patterns of cognitive development, are closely linked to social factors, such as learned gender categories. These cognitive skills are learned both preschool and subsequently at school, supported by the responses of teachers, creating a reinforcement of patterns.
This lecture is talking about performance of boys and girls in English and math. According to the lecture, speaking mention, in English, girls outperform boys in 10% above their peers. According to the lecture, speaking mention, no real difference in math, and researchers look at biological, cognitive, and social factors. According to the lecture, the speaking mention interaction are maintained and reinforced in school, and biological factors are closely linked to social factors. According to the lecture, speaker mentioned these are learned in preschool and subsequent schools. In conclusion, it's interesting.
In our survey, over 100 CEOs who had recently been through an acquisition or merger were asked which areas of their activities needed the most effort. As you can see, the most frequent response to this question was that information
刚刚这一个题突然没有声音了，在这里呢，我就把我已经作答的做了一个保存，然后呢，我们现在重新恢复看一下。
In our survey, over 100 CEOs who had recently been through an acquisition or merger were asked which areas of their activities needed the most effort. As you can see, the most frequent response to this question was that information technology requires the most integration effort. According to 58% of those we surveyed, IT was the most time-consuming and needed the most work. This is understandable, as many of the IT issues are extremely complex, and the consequences of any change in IT can have a significant impact. The key is how quickly and effectively IT integration can be achieved, and there has to be a clear understanding of the consequences there may be of not getting it right. The two other areas requiring significant attention, sales, marketing and business development on the one hand, and financial management on the other, both were selected by 49% of the respondents.
This lecture is talking about survey of 100 CEO. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned IT need the most effort. According to the lecture, speaker mentioned IT is most time-consuming. According to the lecture, speaker mentioned IT issues are complex. According to the lecture, speaker mentioned integration effort, significant impact and consequences. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned sales, marketing, and financial management are supported by 49% of respondents. In conclusion, this lecture is very interesting.
Which country has the third largest population in the UK?
Wales.
Camels are most likely to be found in what habitat?
Desert.
On a compass
Which direction is the direct opposite of southwest?
Northeast, northeast.
What do most successful businesses aim to do? Make a profit, declare bankruptcy, or comply with audits?
Make a profit.
What is it called when the price of goods and services steadily increases over a period of time?
Inflation, inflation.
What mistake has the student made when trying to access the site?
Typing invalid password, invalid password.
Algebra, calculus, and trigonometry are divisions of which academic field?
Mathematics, mathematics.
What campus building would you go to if you wanted to borrow a book or magazine?
Library, library.
Is a profit a loss in funds or a gain in funds?
A gain in funds, a gain in funds.
What energy source does this light bulb need in order to function?
Electricity, electricity.